The Libertarian Party has hit out at a proposal for teens under 16 to be banned from social media. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese endorsed the idea last week, which would stop those under 16 from having accounts on social media platforms including Instagram, TikTok and YouTube. Libertarian Victoria Senate candidate Jordan Ditloff spoke to 6 News earlier.
It's really, really hard to understand it. There's a lot of levels, obviously, on ideas that libertarians disagree with this proposal, but even if you didn't disagree with the ideas, the practicalities and the kind of logic gaps that are here in this policy, it really seems to be policy made on the fly. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think you can see in this age restrictions for social media, it's impossible to ignore that this has come off the back of a couple of pretty horrid weeks for the government on the e-safety commissioner and the way that interim injunction went against them, against X. They're basically sort of getting thrown out of court, being told they can't police the world internet. And it's really impossible to separate these two things because they've gone from a terrible week on e-safety and basically having failed at this attempt to pitch a bully billionaire in Elon Musk against the Australian public. That just hasn't gone down well. People have sided with Elon Musk and Twitter essentially and against the government. And then they've now pivoted into this sort of pearl clutching, won't somebody please think of the children? Except I dare say, I'm not calling you a child, but as someone who would be impacted by these sort of age restrictions, it doesn't sound like they've consulted you.
No. What I was going to say, though, is obviously, I think, and I've been speaking about this in media a bit, and I don't doubt it either, that, social media can have harmful impacts on kids, as can, being online too much. I'm not sure that's, much to dispute there. So should there be any kind of regulation, noting, of course, the current age, as a general platform rule, the standard seems to usually just got to be 13 or over?
Yeah, well, Leo, I think that there are real and meaningful efforts by social media platforms across Meta, X, formerly Twitter, and many others to verify age and to regulate what age is appropriate for children to see and what content is accessible. But at the end of the day, the best regulation and where we say regulation really should lie is in the home. If you're a parent and you have a child who's at home or at school and you're not taking steps to actually have conversations with them first and foremost about what internet access they're having and what they're using it for, what risks and harms are out there. That's part of being a parent. Just the same way you described the dangers of speaking to strangers in person and those kind of things. And there are many, many technological tools on phones. Apple and Android phones have parental settings that can control what can be accessed and when. And ultimately, these policies, this social media restrictions and all of this digital harm, e-safety stuff, it's the government trying to co-parent and trying to essentially parent all of us, but certainly start to usurp some of the responsibilities we say should really lie with parents and communities.
I mean, would you be comfortable uploading, your own driver's license and Medicare to these platforms just to prove you're over 18?
No, and I think, again, all of these issues bleed into one another. You've just recently had the digital ID bill passed in both houses of Parliament in Canberra, and even under a government-controlled ID verification system, providing those details to either social media platforms themselves or third-party providers is just a recipe for disaster. It's a classic example of the intervention potentially causing different or greater harms than the original problem they're trying to solve. And I'm very concerned, and I know many others in the civil liberties and libertarian space are concerned about the way in which this might well be a slippery slope, both to introducing broader identification requirements for internet access for adults, for all cohorts, but also to essentially expose younger users to the risk of privacy theft and data theft, but also to essentially condition them into readily accepting, identifying themselves online in a way that will make expansions of digital ID later in life more difficult for them to resist because they'll be very used to and familiar with doing it.